As you grow older, you may ask yourself if home is where you want to stay. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 questions that you are going to have to ask yourself to see if staying in your current home is the best decision for you. And stay tuned until the end because I'm going to get into some of the expenses and some of the renovations that you might have to consider going forward. The first area I would like to discuss is health. And this is really very individualized. It's case by case. Each person, will determine their level of health and what they can foresee and things that they may have to adapt and adjust to in the future. And, I have a really good client of mine. His father's has stayed at home. They've owned the home since 1951. He's in his 90s now. He's chosen to stay in the home. He's on his own. His wife passed away a number of years ago. But what they've been able to do as he has gotten into his 90s is they have a caregiver come during the day to help him bathe. Meals on Wheels comes, brings him, nutritious meals all throughout the day. But they're also in a position, the way their family is structured with the adult children, is they're there to help look after the property, doing the grass cutting, doing the snow removal. So it really does allow their dad to live in the home for the rest of his days. But again, that wasn't an individual decision that was made. And his health is overall pretty good. Although I will say, recently he has fallen and now he has less confidence in his ability and he doesn't feel as comfortable staying in the home by himself. So these are things that you're going to really have to consider when determining if you want to stay in your home as you get on in years and age in place. A second consideration you may want to make when deciding if you want to have independent living and age in place is with regard to smart technology. And there's so many devices and resources you can use, whether it be home automation, you can have automatic lighting systems, you can have voice-to-voice communication. So in the event that you were to have a fall, that there is somebody on the other end that you could respond to, and then in return, they can respond to what your needs might be, whether it be an emergency or otherwise. Things even like Google Home devices where you can speak to it. You can have family members, drop in. It's whether it's through video or voice to voice. So there is a lot of devices and technology that can assist you in managing your day-to-day dealings around the house, but also keep you safe and secure in the event that you were to have a fall. What I would like to do is share a story about a client I have who is living in his condo. He's in his mid-80s. He's had to learn how to use technology, which he's been able to do. He uses his iPad. He can FaceTime. He can do all of his banking electronically. And he is on his own now. So his partner had passed away. So it was overwhelming for him to deal with everything in such a condensed amount of time. But I can say that the technology has allowed him to live a very good life and a very comfortable life, and he's living confidently as well as independently. The third consideration that I feel is really important and I'd like to discuss with you when considering aging in place when living in Toronto is the universal design of the home. And that's considering, the type of space that you have. Is it accessible for all ages and people with all kinds of physical challenges and abilities? Because I recently went through a scenario with a client where they were elderly and they had a 2-story home, which we sold because they couldn't do the stairs anymore. And we purchased them a condo, and one of the family members that was living with them had physical disabilities. And we really had to consider things like wider entranceways through doorways, wider halls. We couldn't even have different types of flooring textures. It had to be one consistent flooring, no transitions where sometimes one room is raised a little bit higher than the next. Things like in the bathroom, having grab bars, having a shower that he could just step into, having things like the toilet seat had to be elongated and it had to be of a certain height because he doesn't have the physical strength to pull himself up and down to use the washroom. And even considering things like where the toilet paper dispenser is because he's either right-handed, or if he's left-handed, which was going to work best for him. So every little detail really has to be thought out. But most importantly, you have to look into the future, because sometimes in your current physical condition, you're totally fine. You don't have any issues. And it's hard to foresee where you might be in 10, 15, or even 20 years down the road. So when you are considering staying in your home, you really have to come up with a plan and think out every little aspect that could become a challenge for you somewhere down the road. A fourth topic that I'd really like to get into and has become quite popular is multi-generational living. And this is where families maybe pool their resources together. They live in one home. They can divide the home up to have completely self-contained spaces, that so they do have their privacy and space from each other, but they're also close enough that they can be there to support one another in the event of emergencies, or just if someone is needing extra care. And especially if you are aging in your home, then you will be able to rely and depend on those family members to help out. And you'll have that confidence and security that you're not all on your own. You get the social component. So it does serve a lot of really great things to consider. And it is becoming more and more popular since, housing has become so expensive. It just seems to make sense for a lot of families. And obviously, as a family, for this kind of situation to work, you really got to like each other. So it's not for everybody, but it is an option to consider, and it is one that's quite popular. And I can speak to a situation where I have a client. She's a single woman. She's just recently retired. And what she had done is she sold her property, so it was going to help fund her retirement. And she was able to move in with her adult children. They have a large enough home that she can have her own designated space. And that's what she does. She has her own kitchen. She doesn't have to worry about stairs. Everything's flat. Even her walk to the driveway it's on a laneway behind the house. So there's literally no stairs for her to deal with. She has had knee replacement surgery. So for her, it's a nice, comfortable place to live. And I think she's really enjoying living in Toronto. She's in a great neighborhood, and it's vibrant where she lives. She can walk everywhere. There's lots of community activities for her to participate in. And it's also given her the freedom to be able to travel in her retirement and do the things she really wants to do. But at the same time, she doesn't have to concern herself with what her physical ailments, especially with having knee replacement and suffering from arthritis. As time goes on, she knows that she has a safe living environment with family that's capable and close by, and she has the resources to get any extra support if needed. And I think that's something that's really important, and this is a great way for some families to choose to live. The fifth thing you're going to want to consider if you do want to age in place in your home is going to be the social support network you have. And it's really crucial for people, for their mental well-being, to be able to have friends and family come and stay connected with them, communicate with them. Because otherwise, if you're a person, and even if it's a couple, I find sometimes they can feel somewhat isolated, especially during the pandemic. A lot of people, because we couldn't get together as often, we couldn't go out and do the things we normally did, I found a lot of people became isolated. And people that are older maybe felt the impact even harder because fewer and fewer people came around to visit them, and they weren't as social. But I can give you a scenario where I know a man. He's in his mid 90s. Again, he's lived in this house since about 1951. Worked his whole career, never had children of his own. So he's on his own now. His wife passed away some time ago. And for him, what's really important and what's truly amazing is he still gets out and shovels his snow and his neighbor's snow every time there's a snowfall. And he lives in the Victoria Village section of Toronto, so nice community. He does have a raised bungalow, so he does have a few stairs. But that going out and doing the bit of shoveling and the bit of yard maintenance that he really likes to do and tinker around in his garage, it really gives him a sense of purpose. And his interaction with people, it really makes him feel good. And it really is what I believe is keeping him going. And, he's a classic example of somebody that, living in a retirement home or assisted living and losing that sense of independence, I think would really break his heart. Every day he's the first guy out when on a snowfall. He's always shoveling his snow. I'll even call out sometimes, reach out, see if he needs help. And he's already done by the time I've called. He doesn't want to have anybody do it for him, and he's found a sense of purpose. So that's just a great example of someone, and he does have the social support network. He does have friends that come around, friends that go out for dinner with him on a weekly basis. So he is getting enough engagement with other people and interactions that he's living a wonderful life and enjoying his retirement. As promised, I wanted to get into some of the expenses that you could expect if you're going to plan to age in your home during your retirement. And the first expense I'd like to discuss is home care. And you may be able to find a private individual that'll come to your house, and on average you could expect to spend about $20 to $30 per hour. If you wanted to go the route of more of a home care organization with a PSW, on average you could expect $28 to $35 per hour, but there may be a minimum hour requirement that you're going to be charged for. So those are things that you're going to have to consider and budget for in the future. When it comes to the accommodating your aging in place and renovating your home, this is something I think you really have to plan ahead for, because it could be it could be really expensive or it could be minimal depending on how your current home is set up. But as an example, say you need some grab bars throughout the house, you're looking at $50 a bar, not a huge expense, probably manageable. But if you're going to require an elevator lift type system, you could spend upwards of $35,000. Obviously more expensive, more work is involved, and you certainly want to plan for that. But it is good to know if you are 65 or older and you reside in the province of Ontario, you can get up to 25% of $10,000. So there are tax credits that could be available to you. What I'll do is I will link that in the description below. Please have a look at those resources. And if you have any further questions or need any other information, my contact information is below. I'm always happy to share any resources that I have that can help you. And I hope you found value on this video, and I'll see you on the next one.